good morning to you all. First of all, it's a great pleasure for me from the ILO to be here today to facilitate this important session. And it will not come as a surprise to you why the ILO is keen on facilitating a discussion on social dialogue and industrial relations. We are actually celebrating our 100 years of existence as ILO this year, and social dialogue and industrial relations have been a core foundation of the organization's work ever since. And of course, here in Bangladesh, in the garment industry in particular, this has taken a big turns in the last 7 years. We've seen quite a lot of positive improvements and positive directions in terms of addressing industrial relations, and also having a bigger awareness of what it means to actually engage in social dialogue and what it means to have trade unions, employers discussing together and having government to facilitate those discussions and having an enabling environment for improvement of industrial relations. I think that's the gist of today's discussion, and we have a bit of a menu of questions. Really, what we want to hear from the panelists is various views around moving forward and looking forward. As we heard from the opening remarks, you know, Bangladesh is growing, it's getting stronger, it's becoming a developing country. What is the role of industrial relations in that regard? What would the future entail from the perspective of employers, trade unions, and expert organizations? So with that, and considering the time, I would dive in to starting the discussions. I would ask first Mr. Momen from the employer's side, a bit of an opening in terms of what, in your view, in Bangladesh, you know, what kind of developments, what kind of challenges and improvements do you see in developing sound industrial relations systems?
Thank you very much, and very good morning to you all. I think Bangladesh has, over the years, it's been an industry of almost 30 plus years. And during this time, we have gone through many hurdles and many challenges. And we have also learned a lot during the process and corrected certain things that were challenging the industry in many different ways. So now, as you have already heard, that we have invested heavily into the safety aspect of the industry. It is now a very secure and very safe environment that we have provided for the industry, for the people at work. All those benefits and both financial and non-financial benefits that were there, many of those has been addressed, and the worker relations have improved a great deal, which you can see from the peaceful atmosphere that is existing largely in the entire industry. So I think that our past experience has been a learning experience for us, and in the process we have invested into many areas, human safety and other areas, training, etc., to be a sustainable industry in general. I think that would be my opening comments.
Thank you. I'll hop over to Nazma, representing the representative trade unions here in Bangladesh. What would you, first of all, say to that? And what do you think is the role of collective bargaining and engaging directly between the trade unions and management in creating good industrial relations? Nazma.
Okay, thank you, Tuomo. I'm not going to the occupational health and safety issues because it's part of the, if we have the industrial relation, obviously it will work out. So what I believe in the industrial relation, we need to be trust building in between workers and management, which is very important. And what we do, and we are trying to build the capacity to the management as well as the workers. Both are the leader and leadership position, and they need to be reduce the gap, and they need to be trust each other, which is, I believe. And most of the cases in my union, which is, I found, very responsible and very positive from the factory management also, because here is also some of the factory management who already signed the collective bargaining agreement. So we believe that, and mostly we believe if we really wanted to sustainable industrial relation in Bangladesh, it should be women leadership and women participation in the factory level, in the grassroots level. Otherwise, it's not from the people are talking the theoretical things. So we need to be practical ground. So in this regard, we need to be aware, and education is more important, how the industrial relation will be grow up. And also I think that another thing, so the brand and retailer who are producing in Bangladesh and our other countries in Bangladesh, they have to be a responsible purchasing behavior also if we really wanted to industrial relation. Because many cases also the brand said how we have to ensure if we pay extra penny or money and goes to the workers. This is the system where they have the collective bargaining agreement, where the manufacturer are giving beyond the laws the benefit. That means they are giving additional things. So most of the case when we are going for the negotiation on collective bargaining issues, we have big challenges. The brand or buyer will be increase some price. They will give extra benefit. So these are the issue we need to be, and respect is very important. And I'm very much happy also, many of the factory level management, they are eager to be joined in the union and wanted to be interested to work with them, because they also found very much interesting social dialogue within their factory. Even I can tell you, in 2016, the Ashulia unrest, even last year labor unrest, where the factory has union and management has good industrial relation. There is no labor unrest, there is no fighting, there is nothing. So that seems to me the work company and workers are same boat and they are fighting for this. So that is why the Bangladesh government has to be ensuring how to implement our local legislation. And main things, the corruption is big problem for each and every layer. It's not I'm talking the manufacturer, not within the workers also. So how we have to reduce those gap and how we have to work and how respect those women who are producing for the apparel brand. So like we have another things if we really wanted to do, like examples, H&M has global framework agreement with the Industrial Global Union. So we are also working on this area, and many cases also we reduce a lot of things. So that is why we need to be respect, dignity, more wages, more price, and better education and understanding. Then we can get the proper sustainable industrial relation. And you know the women, they can do anything because they have family, they have husband, they have children, they have to work, they have to earn money. So they can do the better thing. So that is why we need how the garments industry, the way we in our union work, more than 70% female are in the leadership. So I hope those kind of things, even the H&M sustainability head also told the women empowerment issues. So these kind of things, I'm talking a little bit more, but it's important. And this is the things because, you know, if workers' management are happy, it's also impact in the productivity. Because we are asking for more prices, more things. It will never work because this is the competition market. That is why the related, the industrial relation, productivity, trust, these are things need to be improved. So we need to work on this issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and we certainly will come back to you on that. So moving away from rhetorics to results, and also referencing the role of the brands and buyers, many of whom are here today. I would like to hear from Peter, from the Ethical Trade Initiative. You work on these issues globally, on not only in the garment industry, on many supply chains. What would you see as the golden standard for improved labor management relations going forwards, and of course particularly here in Bangladesh, which we know that you've been working with Bangladesh for a long time?
Thank you, Tuomo, and good morning to everybody. So there is a common thing that we see, not just in the Bangladesh garment industry and not just in this sector, and that starts with the attitudes of owners and managers. If owners and managers value workers as part of the success factor, That change in culture, that approach to industrial relations is easy to build on. If that realization or that respect is not there, then industrial relations becomes a sham. And of course, the success of business and the sustainability of the garment sector in the future is going to be even more dependent, even more reliant on attracting, retaining, and making the best of skilled labor force. So to do that, there needs to be meaningful forms of engagement. So as you said, Tuomo, and ILO obviously does this in many places, you often have to start with the basics. That's about attitudinal change. In Bangladesh here, you have the participatory workers' committees as a legal requirement, and there's been lots of good work by a number of organizations that can demonstrate that these can be a stepping stone. But then, as Nazma says, that's no replacement ultimately for proper trade unions engaging with management, doing their work, and responding and reflecting the needs of workers. The other part of the story, of course, is there's a responsibility on workers as well. And again, typically our experience, whether that's been in farms in South Africa or garment industry in Cambodia or in Bangladesh itself, most of the problem for workers is the opportunity to participate. It's the barriers placed in front of them, whether that's language or structure or simply time, to express themselves, to engage, to offer their solutions, and to be part of solving problems rather than perceived as the problem. Of course, it's not a panacea. There is time and investment required. Workers often need the support of organizations that can help them build their negotiating skills, their confidence, and these things will go through troubles. But that long-term investment is in the interest of business, it's in the interest of workers, and it certainly needs to underpin long-term sustainability in the industry in Bangladesh.
And now I look at John, who is from the USAID, a very big organization here working on many fronts of economic development. How, in your view, employers and workers can indeed come together to promote these very principles of freedom of association, collective bargaining, and having those abilities and capacity to engage in industrial relations?
Thank you, Tuomo. And let me just say, I'm thrilled to be here in Bangladesh. My wife and I arrived just 4 short months ago to work with USAID on economic growth opportunities. And there are so many opportunities here. Bangladesh is so dynamic. If you look at a whole host of indicators over the last 30 years, the economy has tripled. Extreme poverty down by 60%, access to electricity at 93%, a whole host of health indicators improving. There is so much happening here. And the textile industry and ready-made garments have been at the forefront in terms of pushing trade and exports. 80% of trade can be attributed to the textile industry. So that's significant and phenomenal. Having such a large concentration in one sector also creates a vulnerability. And to address that vulnerability, diversification of economic output is necessary, and resilience within the ready-made garment sector is also important. So it begs the question how to address resiliency. I think my colleagues have started broaching that topic of dialogue, of freedom of association, of collective bargaining, of forming partnerships between workers and management. That's why events like this are so very important, to get that dialogue going, to sow the seeds, to create more awareness of best practices, what's happening in other places around the world, to help Bangladesh really secure a leadership role within the Indo-Pacific region and within the global economy. One of the earlier speakers pointed out many manufacturers, many distributors of garments are actually quite interested in what's happening in the factories where those garments are produced. Just last week, USAID signed a new partnership agreement with Vision Spring. And the idea is very simple. It's to work in approximately 100 factories in Chittagong, in Gazipur, and in Dhaka, with about 85,000 textile workers to test their eyes, to make sure that workers that are making garments don't have vision problems, and when they do have vision problems, to provide high quality and inexpensive eyeglasses to help them with those problems. More importantly, to institutionalize these practices within the garment industry. So that's very, very important. This is a new agreement, and as I think other speakers have pointed out before, issues of environment, safety, and health are important because it's the right thing to do, but it's also the productive thing to do. Environment, safety, and health equals better productivity. Dhanyabad.
Thank you, and you give us a bit of a bridge because the next question is really about productivity, innovation, and moving forward, no? So I want to first ask Peter, and then I come back to Nazma, you, and to Mr. Momen here as well, on your views on it. So, looking at the challenges that the industry faces and the opportunities within, and particularly automation and innovation and actually becoming that sustainable industry that we all wish for, how do you see the role of industrial relations in that? What can the workers and employers do together to make it happen? Because at the end of the day, we are all on this together, no?
I think that's the key point. Change often can be exciting, and there are a lot of conversations going on in this sector about the possibilities to drive increased efficiency, productivity, the use of data, digitalization, and automation. At the same time, that's quite scary. As a businessman, are you going to be ahead of that curve, or are you going to be behind? And as a worker, are you going to find a new place in this incredible, interesting future, or are you going to be left out? So I think industrial relations is part of the key cornerstone of making those changes work. Without good dialogue, without engagement, without the opportunity to involve workers, without the ability to spot those who have the opportunity for upskilling, you're more likely to deal with strife, conflict, and problems. And this beautiful future, this amazing automation that we're all promised, may be actually a source of frustration rather than a new source of next level of industrial growth, next level of creativity, next level of productivity. So I would say that it's absolutely vital to be building those industrial relations now, getting that involvement and that engagement as you start to look into some of the changes that are going to come through development, productivity, automation, as we've talked about. And this goes back, this is not just me talking as someone who reads the book, but as a young industrial engineer in a car plant trying to drive change. I got it all wrong right from the get-go. And I had to learn this the hard way. Workers know so much about what goes on. They can be so passionate about engaging in that future if they feel part of it. If they don't feel part of it, they will find 100 different ways to resist change and cause problems. So industrial relations are absolutely vital to this new future that we're talking about.
Thank you. And Nazma, you referenced it earlier. And let's be honest about it, not all workplaces are equally nice and have good working relationships, no? So there's still quite a lot to do in some of the workplaces in terms of the basics. But of course, in some workplaces, there is an opportunity to work on issues such as productivity, common vision going forward in terms of addressing automation and changes. Could you talk about that? What in your view is the trade union's role in that process going forwards?
Thank you, because I also told that related productivity issues. So that is why also we need to build the capacity how we can get the productivity, so which is also can contribute the union and the management. Both also need to be understood and both need to be also aware about the productivity issues. And another thing I also think, if we really want to sustainability our industry, we need to be long-term industrial relation or business relation with the brand, with the union and the companies. So I think these kind of things are very important, because we have union, we have good sign, but next morning the brand get good price to move the business. That's not sustainable. It's a global supply chain. Each and every one should be fair and transparent. So this is the challenge we need to be reduced. And another things, I think there is, if we really wanted to productivity, also wanted to be workers more wages and benefit, then we have to sign the act. As you know, the Industrial Global Union, I'm the part of the Industrial, so we are signing 21 brand already signed an action collaboration on the textile sector about the act. So I think the accord, you know, in Bangladesh, more than 300 brands are producing. So there was like 220 brand was signed the accord. That is why it's easy to remediation and action for the safety issues. So as long as not more brands are signing, I don't think it will be work. So here is many brand and other people to encourage, and we request also sign the act and increase these things. And one thing I can tell you as a part of the industrial, I have a lot of experience, and I am also going different place in the supply chain, and I'm the best and expert. Sometimes I'm going different country, how we organize female women workers in the textile sector or different sector, and how is a better industrial relation. If we compare with the Bangladesh to other country, even Myanmar, Vietnam, Cambodia, Ethiopia, who are the big, the Bangladesh is the best for the social dialogue and industrial relation, which is I seen, which is I do, and which is I believe, because Bangladesh has a big problem, image and reputation, because we are not much talking about our good thing, we are talk more our bad thing, but we need to be branding. So that is why the BGME themselves has to believe the industrial relation and social dialogue, because as a company, if they don't believe, it will not work, and government should be enforced for these are the issues. And ILO, you have also a lot of responsibility on the social dialogue issues. So, you know, it's we need to be all fair and transparent, and we need to be work, and we have to get respect each and every corner. I think that could be the solution.
Thank you. So really a common effort. Mr. Momen, from the BGMEA side, and also as an entrepreneur and a businessman, how would you see the role of industrial relations in terms of productivity? How would you see that businesses can connect and talk to workers and align together for better productivity? And
thank you again. I see that the industry is, I mean, when we talk about fourth industrial revolution, there will be a lot of changes that will take place in the industry, the way we do things now. And it is not that we are talking about, is it a distant future? It is already now. Even in Bangladesh, we have seen, especially in the sweater manufacturing, it was largely manual manufacturing process, which has been robotized with a new replacement. So the industry, what it did probably, you know, now the worker requirements is much less compared to the, and also the skill set is totally different. So they have retrained them, and they have been, you know, this has been, they have learned to accommodate the new technology into it. So more and more challenges are coming. Industrial relations is actually a very important aspect in embracing those innovations that are coming up, because there were a lot of job losses and there were a lot of new jobs created. So now industry altogether, both the workers, the unions, and the management has to, you know, work together to retrain and to, you know, accommodate those changes in the industry to facilitate it. So I do see a huge importance of having a greater industrial relations in facing those challenges in the future. And this is not that, you know, it is absolutely, you know, distant and it's remote, it's not going to touch us. But we see already talk is going on that jobs will be onshoring, jobs will be nearshoring. The challenge is for all of us, not just the management, the workers, the management, and the industry in general. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have one more segment after this segment. So I ask one question from Peter on industrial relations, and then we move to the last segment of the discussion. What approaches, Peter, do you think that buyers, what is their role in promoting this kind of adaptation to changes and this kind of positive outlook for industrial relations going forward? What is your global experience, and what would you encourage Bangladesh to look into?
Thank you, Tuomo. As I said at the beginning, for the employers, there's an issue of attitudes and realization, not suggesting there aren't good employers, there are. But it's the same with buyers. You know, we see some buyers who really understand the value of workers, are involved in things like ACT moving forward, but it's still not the norm. And I think, therefore, my call would be that there's an absence of a vision for this industry that links consumers all the way through to decent working opportunities, decent working conditions for the workers in Bangladesh and the other sourcing markets. And it's not good enough to have a vision, it's also important to have a practical roadmap. And part of that practical roadmap is that good industrial relations should underpin the future vision of this industry. Without that, we're going to see, and I'm sounding like a stuck record, challenges and problems that can consistently bedevil this industry rather than realize its full potential. So I think buyers' partnerships with suppliers have got to move beyond compliance. Compliance and audit will not drive the sort of progressive industrial relations, the partnerships, the shared ownership, the shared value that this industry is going to need in the future. I get the value of audit and I get the value of compliance, but it's just not the progressive force that's going to drive the sustainability agenda in the long run. I've already mentioned ACT. I think ACT is a great vehicle where you've got in real industrial relations from key global leaders from the trade union side and the industry side trying to work this out. But we need more people to be behind that. We need the critical momentum to make that work. Our own experience is to try and turn these things from scary concepts like freedom of association for buyers into very practical things they can do, very practical steps they can take or partnerships that they can join and make that very real. So people like ETI and others have a role to play in joining up the links, if you like, and turning the rhetoric into very practical opportunities. And there are buyers, as I say, that are experimenting with this. But last but not least, I guess, is, and a number of people have mentioned this industry, to a large extent, has been built on the basis of the next order or the next season. And I hear more and more talk about partnerships. And I really believe the future, if we're serious about sustainability, has got to be built on those partnerships. Industrial relations at a factory level, industrial relations at a national level, partnership between suppliers and buyers, and that we really realize the potential this industry has. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we're opening the last segment, which is really about gender inclusiveness. And we heard a lot about how the industry has been at the forefront of empowering women and providing productive employment. We at ILO just this year actually had a vote for a new convention, which is on harassment and violence at work, an issue that we all know that is actually quite important and needs to continue to be addressed. But there's so much more to women's empowerment and inclusiveness than that. John, you and USAID, you work a lot on women's empowerment also in the garment industry. How do you see going forwards, recognizing the challenges of the industry going ahead, you know, the duress, the opportunities, how do you see that the industry can do more and better in terms of gender inclusiveness and women's empowerment?
We view this as a very important, in fact, critical issue to promote sustainable and inclusive economic growth. And when we talk about economic growth, we put those two qualifiers in front of it. Let me share a few past examples with you. Right out of university, when I was 22 years old, I joined the Peace Corps and I went off and worked in Cameroon in aquaculture as an extension agent. And I worked there for a couple of years and I came back and went to graduate school. And one of my professors asked me, well, are you sure you weren't working with the husbands of the farmers? And I thought about it, and in fact, everyone I was working with was a man, and yet certainly women were involved with agriculture production. So for 2 years, I had missed that. I had the real pleasure of being in Kenya in 2015 when President Obama came through. And he spoke to many different groups while he was there, but one of his comments really resonated with me. If a country fails to educate the girl child, if a country fails to employ its women, it will fail in the global marketplace. And those were really powerful words, certainly coming from President Obama, but something that I think our agency, USAID, truly believes in. You have to engage productively with half of the population. By not doing so, you're missing out on issues that affect productivity. Now, how do you go about doing that is the key. And I think we've talked about it earlier too, but we're really talking about a change in cultures that needs to happen from within factories, within institutions, I would argue, within the school system in Bangladesh. We're talking about compliance, so as rules and regulations and policies are put in place, that there's a system to track and ensure that what the leadership has agreed to is actually being implemented. And it will take investment, an investment of capital, perhaps in technologies, perhaps in changes in terms of policies, rules, and regulations. In the end, you will drive economic growth and you will increase productivity within your own factories. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to Nazma and Momen on the same question. What do you see in terms of going forward with women's voice and women's participation in doing things better in the future? Be you a worker or be you a manager? Nazma and then Momen.
Okay. Thank you. Actually, the gender-based violence issues and women empowerment, it's not only the workplace issues, it's also intimacy, partner violence, also family, also it's a big challenge. It's a patriotic and male-dominating society. So it's a big challenge for both sides, in the family, in the workplace, because women should be quiet, women should earn, give the money. So this theory we are trying to change. And if we are talking about the Bangladesh perspective of the gender-based issues, we don't have any gender-based violence law at the workplace, which is one of the challenges. We have the guideline from the High Court verdict. So many cases is very challenging for us to make understand to the company there is no law why you have to do this kind of things. Even the ILO Convention 190 this year, Bangladesh government should be ratified. That is the two issues we need to from the government side. Other than most of the cases, we need to be make understand, especially the men, what are the related issues, the gender-based violence. Because the gender-based violence, people norms, is not only Bangladesh, especially in our South Asian region, it's like sexual harassment, rape, those kind of issues. But the behavior, attitude, maternity protection, job, discrimination, these all are related. And it's also very much affected their cost in the productivity when the women are not satisfied. Because many cases also we found that the girls are talking that if the man is beaten me, I accept. The behavior, the vulgar and slang use, this is not acceptable. So this kind of awareness and education is very important and sensitize the gender-based violence issues. And most of our union, we are trying to be established anti-harassment committee in the factory, and it is very well functionable. And also it's a free, when you have the union and industrial relation, workers are not fear, not hiding secret. So it's very transparent and easy to resolve the issues. So if we are hiding and wanted to be secret, then the bad, rotten smell will come out very badly. So that is why we need to be start from the very bottom, how we have to go forward. Thank you.
So a matter to be taken with utmost seriousness going forward. Mr. Momen, how would you see the employer's role in advancing both addressing issues which Nazma just referred, but also advancing women management and career opportunities in the industry.
There has been a verdict by the Supreme Court in 2009 where the factories, not only factories, all organizations in Bangladesh is required to have a sexual harassment committee within the organization, and it has to be a women majority committee. So at BGMEA, we have received this, and we have actually instructed our factories to start having those committees to sort of address the issues of sexual harassment. So what we have seen that what is reported can be addressed. There are many issues that are not reported, as Nazma already mentioned, that there are certain things that people, they don't feel confident about. So we need to have that awareness built within the organization, and for that this thing come up, you know, and also there is a lack of understanding of the definition of what harassment entails. That needs to be also very much clear, because there are some cultural issues, there are some, that could be, sort of camouflaged with the cultural sort of things. So those needs to be cleared up more, so that, we know distinctly, we understand and realize this was an harassment issue. Regarding having women into the leadership within the organization, I think the management of every factory will be more than happy to have that. But I see again there is a lack of confidence, a lack of awareness. Not only that opportunities are lacking, there is also opportunities could also be lacking, and at the same time there is a lack of confidence on the part of and also the fear of taking responsibility, as I see is there in the women leadership. Women in the organization to take the leadership role. But what we have seen or noticed in other sectors or in other countries, that there is a discriminatory pay that is not there in this industry. That is for sure. So this is something very encouraging here. So the women leadership, if, as management, we want to engage them, and we have got advantages of having women leaders. We have seen this in this country in many different sectors. So that is not something that management would be resistant to. Rather, we welcome that. So, but there needs to be more awareness built in this area, so that more and more ladies can come up in the leadership role.
So thank you. So really addressing the barriers to that and working together to do so. But I hear a strong voice of support from the BGMEA side. Last round of comments, and it's really to have your views on how to address the distrust and the distance between the employers and workers in relation to positive industrial relations. This is a very positive panel, no? So we don't seem to have much of a disagreement on the value of social dialogue and industrial relations. But how do you address that distrust? Because it still lingers there. We still see it poking its head occasionally when there are issues that need to be addressed. How do you reduce that gap? One round and then we close. Who would like to start? Nazma, please.
Thank you. The mistrust, if we want to really reduce, it should be first started from myself. If I'm not trust anyone, then how I do ask anyone? So that is why we need to be trust each and everyone, and we have to show the positive things. And if we are thinking, yeah, there is a lot of challenges, struggle, but how we have to overcome, that kind of quality we need to be established. It doesn't matter the woman and man, it's in each and everywhere, and especially from the business side, they have to trust their workers, because without them, they cannot be the tiger, because they are not, because this is the issues, because this is new word I learned from the last social dialogue program in FNB in Netherlands, said the manufacturer are tiger, the goats are workers, and I said no, we are the tiger, they are the goats, because we are the productivities. So this respect is very important, and political commitment is very important from the leadership, like union side as well as the manufacturer side, also important, and government should be which is right, which is wrong, and which are the unfair labor practices, they have to be fairly treated. Otherwise, it will not work, because sometimes if you are feeling I'm allergic and you need to be in the audience, Nazma, here, but you don't believe, it will not work. So that kind of things, and we have to be branding Bangladesh. We are trusting. We are really doing excellent job, but there is no campaign, there is no publicity. So we need to find out which factory is best, what they are doing, and how they do, and how it's possible. So that kind of things we have to, good practice, we need to practice everywhere, and we need to implement within our factory, within our supplier, and this should be BGME take learn, because automation, how affected, how the union functioning in our country, the safety issue, many things can people learn from us, but we are not trust and we don't respect each other. So please come and let us work together and respect each other. That is my urge to everyone.
Thank you. Peter, maybe your views in terms of this?
Yeah, this is what ETI does day to day, and I think there's a couple of things we've learned. Firstly, you have to have a common purpose. There has to be a basis on which to develop that trust, and I think in this industry, the common purpose is the success of the industry and its contribution to the country. The second thing is you need a process. You can't just go from no trust to trust, and therefore you need a process which brings people together, which experiments in dialogue, which learns, and learning is an important part of that, and then building on that process. And thirdly, in most cases, you need some sort of steward or arbiter to help parties who are not used to collaborating learn to collaborate effectively. And we've seen it time and time again. People who start off from very different positions, if you can build that common purpose, if you can reassure them there is a process where all parties are respected, if there is a skilled steward to help through the lumps and bumps, you will find out you can either solve problems that seemed intractable, or you can do more together than you could have done individually. But it takes time, it takes courage, and it takes someone just to take that first step forward.
So skilled steward, I like that, having, of course, institutions that allow for social dialogue, but also having the quality of those discussions and leadership in terms of those discussions. John, what would you say from the USAID and developmental partners' perspective?
Definitely agree with what Nazma and Peter have just shared. Being from within the development sector, I tend to be a perpetual optimist. I agree that there is distrust within factories, between management and workers, but there's plenty of examples where trust has been built. There is plenty that is going well in Bangladesh today. So dialogue is certainly important, showing how each side can gain, putting the process in place. All of these things are critically important to changing the culture. The culture within a particular factory is actually a reflection of the broader culture within a society. And cultures change. Does that mean my time is over?
I guess we are getting close, at least.
Cultures change and evolve over time, and things are changing here in Bangladesh. A key element is identifying champions from within inside the industry that are doing things well, and those champions exist. Many are sitting in the room here today, and to have them speak and showcase the very good practices that are occurring in Bangladesh today. Thank you.
So thank you. I like that too. It's recognizing the challenge, but celebrating the positives within. Mr. Momen and BGMEA, well, how would you see this going forward?
I would like to be the same optimist as Peter is. So I'm also an optimist. What I see is that, okay, traditionally there exists some sort of mistrust between the unionist and the management that is understood and that has been taken care of, and we have resolved a great deal of it. As you can see, we are speaking the same language as Nazma and myself. But what I'm going to add here, when you send me those questions, this was there, but I see you are not asking me. That's why I'm posing the question to myself, is that, I mean, we see mistrust between the buyers and the supply chain, and so And we also see a different thing. You know, whenever we see the high-level sustainability officers coming here, they talk certain things. But whenever we meet in the micro meetings with the buyers, they talk something else. So they said, okay, these are requirements that you have to comply if you want to be my supplier. But, you know, to be sustainable, whether economic, I mean, to be environmentally sustainable, to be, you know, caring and given a caring environment to take care of our workers, right? There has to be an economic sustainability. So you talk about pricing on a daily basis, and you say these are, okay, I don't care what you have to do, but you have to do that to be my vendor. But this is my price that I want. So if you don't have that kind of economic sustainability, how come we'll have the whole entire industry will survive? And you see, I have been in meetings where I was threatened that if you don't accept this price, this order is going to some other country, naming a country which is just emerging. So this is something where the trust is missing also, that is not normally talked about, but this also not to be brought to surface, and that trust has to be built as well.
Thank you. So that references the role of the brands and buyers also, and the relationship between the suppliers and brands. We are closing, so thank you for the panelists. I think there was a bit of in the screen, there was a recognition of the importance of continuing work on industrial relations. You know, there was at least 93% said that this continues to be something extremely valuable going forward. I want to thank the panelists. You know, I think it was a very positive, forward-looking panel. From the ILO perspective, we of course want to continue to work with all of you on building the basis of better industrial relations, the environment, the legislative space, but also the practice. I think Nazma very correctly put, from rhetorics to results. You know, it has to be something that actually has a meaning in the enterprise level relationships, not just talk. With that, thank you so much, and we'll move to the next segment. Thank you.